Just when you thought that MAGA Republicans couldn't get any more extreme or insane, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis has signed a bill that deletes most of the mentions of climate change from state law. Now, he did this even as most of South Florida is facing record heat temperatures, as high as 109 degrees in Fort Lauderdale, 107 in Hollywood and Kendall, 105 in Key West, and 104 degrees in Miami. If this is what May feels like, can you imagine how sweltering the summer months will be? Now, clearly, weaponizing and politicizing climate change, which is not just an issue here in the US, it is planet-wide. Every single country is taking on the climate crisis with policies to try and roll back some of our CO2 emissions. But Governor Ron DeSantis is clearly in a state of denial, refusing to accept that there's a problem. It bans wind turbines from being built off Florida's coastline. There are no wind turbines planned now or in the future of Florida's coastline, but still he thought he'd ban them anyway, in the same way that they are trying to ban immigrants from voting when immigrants could never vote. When he signed the bill, DeSantis boasted in a post on Twitter that he said, "We're restoring sanity in our approach to energy and rejecting the agenda of the radical green zealots." I mean, let's be very clear about what he is doing here. He is standing in an environment that is getting hotter and weather systems and weather events are getting more extreme and denying that anything is actually happening while his hair is blowing and his tie is blowing and he disappears off into some unprecedented storm. That is how insane this is. That in every state, not just red states or blue states, but in every state, there is significant climate change, and it is directly connected back to the graph that shows where the Industrial Revolution saw massive emissions of CO2, and then the graph directly kicks up and never comes back down. It is man-made climate change. No scientist questions it. That is not the issue. Is it man-made or not? What scientists are trying to do is come up with clever ways for us to reduce our carbon emissions. And to blame Democrats or to say it's a Democrat thing only goes to prove how completely brainless, deranged, and offensive someone like Ron DeSantis really is, considering that planet Earth just marked a shocking new milestone, enduring 12 consecutive months of unprecedented heat, according to new data from the European Union's Climate Monitoring Service. Every single month, from June 2023 to May 24, was the world's hottest such month on record. They said it was shocking, but not surprising, given human-caused climate change. This is according to the director of the program, who warned that worse is to come. And unless planet-warming fossil fuel pollution is slashed, this string of hottest months will be remembered as comprehensively cold, they said. And this is what's so interesting, is that migration at the moment is often for political reasons or economic reasons, seeking asylum at the southern border. But shortly you're going to get an increased number of people seeking some kind of climate asylum, getting away from nations where climate change has really taken hold. And in fact, Antonio Guterres from the United Nations, the Secretary General, he made an impassioned speech in New York about climate change, slamming fossil fuel companies as the godfathers of climate change and explicitly calling on all countries to ban advertising their fossil fuel products. He urged world leaders to swiftly take control of the spiraling climate crisis or face dangerous tipping points. He said, "We are playing Russian roulette with our planet. We need an exit ramp off the highway to climate hell." But only the United States is really politicizing climate change at this level. And unfortunately, it's an election year, and as the temperature continues to rise, the heat has been taken off climate change, whilst Americans focus on combating the rise of fascism and the rise of Trumpism. And I hope and pray that once that is dealt with, Joe Biden and the Democrats will then be able to roll out a whole new set of plans to reduce emissions across the country, because we've got used to gas and oil, thinking that it's okay and that it's normal and fine. We may have unlimited supplies and people might talk about energy independence. But all of that is irrelevant when the mercury is rising on the climate crisis. Now, the news comes as the western US is experiencing its first heat wave so far this summer, with temperatures soaring into the triple digits. An unprecedented heat has already left a trail of death and destruction across the planet this spring, with dozens dying in India over the past few weeks as temperatures push to 122 Fahrenheit. Southeast Asia have deaths, school closures, shriveled crops as heat surges. In Mexico, howler monkeys were dropping dead from the trees. You see, it's already happening. This isn't something that we will read about and think, well, that's something we have to plan for in the future. You know, we've been talking about this now for 30 years, and the fossil fuel companies had data on this. They knew about this as early as the 1950s, and yet they have been lobbying and they have been using their own propaganda to force us to think that it's not as big a problem as it really is. And so I urge you, as a self-confessed environmentalist, you know, we have to look after this planet, as it's the only place we have to live.
People, when they start talking about things like global warming, they typically use that as a pretext to do a bunch of left-wing things that they would want to do anyways. And so we're not doing any left-wing stuff.
I'm Anthony Davis. You can find me on the 5 Minute News YouTube channel. Like, comment, subscribe, and even join to support independent journalism. You can find me every Wednesday co-hosting Uncovered and on Sunday on The Weekend Show with Midas Touch.